I was sipping coffee in my corner office on the 34th floor of the Fremont Building in downtown San Francisco when the envelope arrived. Heavy cream cardstock, gold embossed edges. My name written in cursive so perfect it felt like a slap Elaine Bennett. Not Morrison, not my name. Hers. I didn't need to open it to know who it was from. No one in my life sent handwritten letters, not since I left the house on Maple Street 17 years ago. But I opened it anyway, and when I did, my hand trembled like I was 17 again, holding a positive pregnancy test in the same bathroom where my sister used to lock me in for quiet time. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Allison Grace Bennett and Marcus Anthony Wolfe. Location, the Bennett Estate, Boston. Date, June 8th. Dress code, garden elegance. Taped to the bottom of the card like an afterthought was a handwritten note on pink stationery that smelled faintly of Chanel. Elaine, I know things between us have been complicated, but family should be together for important moments. I hope you'll come. Allie. She used the heart. The same heart she drew on my locker in nail polish the day I came home from the hospital and no one would look me in the eye. The same one she doodled on the folder labeled baby stuff that Mom burned in the fireplace that Christmas Eve. I read the note 3 times, then dropped the envelope on my desk like it burned. I should have thrown it away, or laughed, or called my therapist, but I didn't. I just stared at the window watching a fog roll in over the city and thought, what the hell does she want from me now? If you've ever had a sibling who treated you like a ghost until they needed to polish their image in front of strangers, drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you're ready to hear how I finally uncovered what my sister buried in that house, including my daughter. Because yes, there was a child, and yes, she's still alive. But nothing could have prepared me for how I'd find her. The last time I saw Allison, she was standing at the top of the stairs in a satin robe holding a baby wrapped in my favorite blue blanket. My arms were outstretched. I was bleeding. My stomach was still soft, still aching from labor. And she said, Mom says you're not ready. Then she disappeared behind the attic door and locked it. I didn't tell anyone, not the hospital staff, not the therapist I was forced to see, not the boyfriend who ghosted me the second my belly showed, because no one would have believed me. They said I imagined it, that the baby died, that there never was a birth certificate, that I was delusional, that the bleeding was from a miscarriage, not a live birth. My mother even said it was a phantom womb thing some girls get weird when they're hormonal. And for a while, I believed them, because how could I not? When the whole world acts like something didn't happen, you start to doubt your own eyes. So I ran, changed my name, built a new life where no one knew the words attic or Maple Street or Grace Bennett's youngest daughter. I worked, obsessed over encryption, turned silence into code, became invisible by design, until I wasn't. Until a wedding invitation crashed through 17 years of constructed denial. 3 days later, I was still debating whether to RSVP when my assistant popped her head into my office. You've got a delivery, she said. Looks personal. It was another letter. This time without flowers or pink paper, just one sentence. She's asking about you. No signature, no return address. I knew who she was. There was only one she in my life whose existence was buried beneath a layer of family lies so thick even I almost forgot her name. I never even got to give her one. She was born June 7th, 17 years ago. I was 17 years and 2 months old. Allison was 20 and already practiced at pretending she cared. They let me hold the baby for 43 seconds, I counted. Then they took her upstairs. They told me I was hallucinating when I asked to feed her. Now, after all these years, someone maybe her was looking for me. I booked my flight that night. Not because I forgave my sister. Not because I wanted to see my mother. But because if there was even a chance, just a sliver of a possibility that she was alive, that she remembered me, that she knew, then I had to go. I couldn't live another year with the question. I needed the answer, even if it ruined me. I didn't RSVP, I just showed up. The Bennett estate was just as I remembered, colonial white pillars, blood-red roses curling up the porch, and that smell, lavender and bleach. Always bleach. Mom used it like perfume. Allison greeted guests in a champagne-colored dress glass of Prosecco, in hand, not a hair out of place. When she saw me, her smile flickered for half a second. Then it returned. Bright, empty, tactical. Elaine, you look, well, you too, I said flatly. She leaned in like we were in on some secret joke. I'm so glad you came. Where is she, I asked. Her eyes froze. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. A beat, then another smile. Let's not ruin the happiest weekend of my life, okay? That's when I heard it. From upstairs. A sound I hadn't heard in 17 years. A girl's voice, soft, humming. Then the creak of the attic door. The moment I heard the humming, something inside me cracked open. It wasn't a memory, not exactly. More like a sense, a deep, buried instinct clawing its way to the surface after years of being sedated. My legs started moving before I even realized it. Up the stairs toward the sound. Toward the attic door I hadn't seen since the night they told me the baby never existed. But of course I was intercepted. Elaine, my mother's voice, sharp and saccharine all at once, just like always. I stopped mid-step, my foot hovering above the fourth stair, the one that used to squeak when we were kids. She appeared at the base of the staircase, still in pearls and pastel cashmere like the years hadn't passed. You can't go up there, she said too quickly. That wing is off limits. Renovations, mold, dangerous. She was lying. The way her voice wavered ever so slightly, the way her eyes flicked toward the top of the stairs, and then back to me too fast, like a reflex, told me everything. You never changed the locks, did you? I asked quietly. Her lips twitched. I don't know what you're talking about. The attic door, it's the same. The humming, it came from up there. Don't be paranoid, Elaine, you always... I turned and walked down the stairs before she could finish the sentence. If I stayed on those stairs another second, I was going to grab her by the cardigan and scream, "Where is she?" But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to be smart, strategic, calculated. I needed to be who they never expected me to become. The rest of the party blurred. Perfect lighting, elegant guests, tiny canapes, strategic laughter. Allison glided through the crowd like she was auditioning for royalty, and I became invisible, my old superpower. I scanned the room, watched interactions, noticed every glance toward the hallway, every tray of drinks that mysteriously turned back before reaching the second floor. No staff went upstairs, no guests either. But something was up there. I asked a server where the restroom was, and she pointed me down the west corridor. I smiled, thanked her, and walked in the opposite direction. Up the back stairs, quiet, unused. At the top, the air changed. Dust, dry wood, and lavender. Always lavender. The hallway was dim, lit only by a single bulb near the attic stairs. The door was still there, same cracked white paint. Same brass handle with the dent Allison made when she slammed it during one of her tantrums in high school. My hand was on the knob when I heard it again. The voice. But this time, she was singing. Soft, raspy, like she didn't know anyone was listening. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. My chest caved inward. Because that was my lullaby. The one I whispered through tears in the attic the night they took her away. The door creaked slightly under my grip. But it didn't open. There was a lock now. Back downstairs, I found the only person who might know something without being fully indoctrinated into the Bennett illusion, Marcus Wolfe the groom. He was sipping bourbon in the library, flipping through a photo album left on display like bait. She really invited you, he said without looking up. Of course she did, I replied. Can't have a wedding without a full cast. That made him chuckle. He finally looked up. You're not what I expected, he said. She described you as weird, paranoid, broken. I was going to say private. But sure, let's go with yours. He gestured toward a chair across from him. I sat unsure why I was even entertaining this conversation. Maybe part of me hoped he'd say anything that confirmed I wasn't imagining this. How long have you known her, I asked. 2 years, he said. Met at a charity gala. She smiled and made me forget every thought in my head. Sounds like her. But lately he added, voice softening, it feels like there's something under the surface. Like I only know half of the story. You don't even know the prologue, I muttered. He tilted his head. You want to tell me the rest? I looked at him, really looked, and I realized something. He didn't know. He wasn't in on it, and suddenly I wanted to warn him. But where would I even start? Hey, your fiancé stole my baby and locked her in an attic for 17 years wasn't exactly cocktail hour conversation. So I just said, check the northeast attic and listen carefully. Then I stood up and walked away. That night I didn't stay at the house. I had booked a room at a nearby hotel weeks ago on instinct. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling the voice, the humming, the child, my child. At 2:13 a.m. I got a text from an unknown number. She asks about the woman in the picture, the one with the sad eyes. I froze. Attached was a photo, blurry, clearly taken secretly, of me, from that afternoon. Then another message. You have 2 days before she's moved. No signature. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. The picture, the voice, the lock. She was real. And she remembered me. I had to get her out. No more secrets, no more silence. I was done being the forgotten one. The only question now was, what would it cost to finally tell the truth? The next morning, the sun rose like it didn't know it had no right to. I lay awake in my hotel bed, the anonymous texts still glowing on my phone screen. She asks about the woman with the sad eyes. That line gnawed at me. It wasn't just eerie, it was specific. Someone in that house was letting her see photos of me. Or at least, one photo. That meant she wasn't completely cut off. She was being watched, yes, but she was also watching. I stared at the ceiling for hours, trying to recall everything I could about the attic. Its layout, its cracks, its secrets. The insulation was thin. One summer, the heat nearly cooked me alive up there. In winter, I'd wake up with frost clinging to my lashes when they locked me in after my episodes. Episodes, they called them. Nightmares, shaking, crying fits. Trauma responses. But back then, everyone insisted I was just sensitive. I wasn't sensitive. I was a mother. A grieving, gaslit, discarded mother. And now I knew for certain my daughter was alive. By noon, I was back at the estate. The wedding planner eyed me like a stain on satin as I entered through the service driveway. Allison had apparently requested I not disrupt the flow of the festivities. I smiled sweetly and showed her a box of fake tech gadgets. I'm here to fix the Wi-Fi, I lied. Bride's request, something about the live stream. She blinked unsure, then nodded. No one questions a woman in black carrying cables, especially not in a mansion built by old money with bad wiring. I slipped upstairs when no one was looking. The attic door was still locked. I knelt beside it. Picked up my phone. I wasn't going to try brute force, I had something better the past. When I was 17, the attic lock was simple. An old-school Yale latch with a twist plate. I doubted they upgraded much. The Bennetts were too cheap to fix the boiler. Why would they bother with state-of-the-art security upstairs? I slid a tension wrench into the keyhole and turned slowly. My other hand worked a rake pick, gently manipulating the pins. It was muscle memory now. I'd picked this lock before during the months I was kept up there sneaking out when I could, only to be caught and punished. Click. The door creaked open like it was breathing out a secret. And there she was. She stood at the far end of the attic by the circular window. The light haloed her like something out of a fever dream. Her back was to me. She wore a pale blue nightgown. Her hair was dark, so dark it looked black in the dusty light. And wavy, just like mine when I was her age. She turned slowly, and our eyes met. Brown, wide, cautious, and unmistakably mine. The room tilted. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat had sealed itself shut. She stepped forward, barefoot, thin ankles, holding something, an old stuffed animal I thought had burned in the fireplace with my folder. You're her, she said, not asked, said. I think so, I whispered. She tilted her head. I know your face, from the picture. I nodded, tears already pooling. What's your name, I asked, voice shaking. She frowned. She says I shouldn't ask that. Who's she? My mom. I blinked. Allison. She shrugged. She doesn't like being called that. I'm supposed to call her mother when guests are around, and not speak unless spoken to. My fists clenched involuntarily. You live up here, I asked carefully. Only when I'm sick, she said, or when I forget rules. What rules? She rattled them off like multiplication tables. No shoes inside, no windows open past sunset, no questions during meals. No outside phones, no pictures, no birthdays. That last one sliced into me like glass. No birthdays, I echoed. She shook her head. She says they attract bad energy. She was 17, a teenager, and she'd never had a birthday. Then I asked the question I had feared for years. Do you know who I am? She hesitated, looked down at her feet, then nodded. I think I used to call you Mama, but then Mother said I imagined it. She said you were a dream. A sad dream I made up when I was little. I couldn't hold back the tears. You didn't imagine me, I choked. You didn't. I'm real. I knew it, she whispered. I always knew. She crossed the floor, and suddenly she was in my arms. Her shoulders trembled against my chest, and just like that, 17 years of silence shattered. I held my daughter, my stolen child, and I swore to her right there in that dusty attic, I'm taking you out of here. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. Allison would never let her go without a fight. Not now, not after building her entire persona around the lie. She'd painted herself as the poised philanthropic bride with the mysterious family past. If the world discovered she had hidden a child in her attic for 17 years, my child, her entire existence would unravel. I had to be careful, smart, ruthless if necessary. The girl, my daughter, gripped my hand tightly. "What's your name?" I asked again gently. This time she answered. "Eden," she whispered. Of course it was. Allison always had a flair for biblical metaphors. Paradise locked away, knowledge hidden, a garden walled off from the world. Well, I was ready to kick the gates open. We made a plan. I gave Eden a burner phone, showed her how to text me a secret phrase if she was in danger window open. It was something innocuous enough not to raise suspicion, but specific enough to be a signal. Then I told her I'd be back the next day, and I left. Because if I stayed longer, I wouldn't leave at all. I walked back through the mansion like I was made of stone. Allison didn't even look up as I passed, but I felt her eyes on me the whole way out. Like she knew, like she always knew, and maybe she did. 'Cause 2 hours later, I got another anonymous text. "She knows you found Eden. They're planning to move her tomorrow." I didn't panic. I didn't scream or throw my phone across the room. I sat still, frozen, breathing in a way I hadn't since I was 17, and bleeding through my jeans while my mother whispered, "There was no baby. You just had a bad period, sweetheart." But this wasn't a memory. This was now. They were going to move her. Somewhere. Somewhere I might never find her again. My daughter Eden was going to vanish. Again. And this time they weren't going to make the mistake of letting her stay in the attic. No, this time they'd be smarter, cleaner, maybe a boarding school in Europe. Or worse, a private facility. Somewhere you don't get out of unless you're dead or brainwashed. I had 24 hours, maybe less. I met Samantha at the diner down the road from my hotel. She was the only person in my life who knew even fragments of the truth. We'd met years ago at a Women in Tech event in Oakland, bonded over a shared hatred of performative girl boss feminism and bad Chardonnay. I never told her everything, never told anyone everything, but she'd seen enough of my scars to believe the outlines. When she slid into the booth, she took one look at my face and said, "You found her, didn't you?" I nodded. "And it's worse than you thought. Way worse." I told her about the attic, about Eden's eyes, the rules, the humming, the fact that she remembered me even after all these years of being told I didn't exist. Sam listened, silent, hands tight around her mug of coffee. "Jesus," she said finally, "you need to call the cops." "I can't," I said, "not yet." "Why the hell not?" "Because they'll say it's a custody dispute. There's no paper trail, no birth certificate, no proof. Allison's name is probably all over every legal document. My name's not even on the hospital record." Sam blinked. "Wait, you checked?" I tried. A long time ago. My mom had it sealed. She claimed it was a miscarriage that got complicated and threatened to sue for harassment when I started asking questions. I was 17. No one listened. She leaned back, rubbing her face. "So what do? We get proof." That afternoon I broke into my childhood home. It wasn't as dramatic as it sounds. I knew the old cellar door still had a busted lock. I waited until the rehearsal dinner crowd left for the country club and the staff took their break. Then I slipped in. It smelled the same. Dust, rotting wood, lavender and mold. I moved quickly through the house, retracing the steps I used to take as a girl sneaking cookies at midnight. But I wasn't looking for sugar. I was looking for evidence. I found it in the guest room closet. Tucked behind old coats and broken lamps, a box labeled "Donation, Do Not Open." It was taped shut, but I pried it open with a letter opener from the nearby desk. Inside, a baby blanket, blue, soft, familiar. A hospital bracelet, the name scratched off. A photo of me holding a newborn, my face red from crying. And beneath it all, a manila folder. My hands were trembling as I opened it. Inside were forms, medical, legal, all forged. My signature faked on a release document. Allison's name listed as temporary guardian in a custody request filed under emergency terms. A single paragraph in a typed affidavit from my mother describing me as mentally unstable, unfit to parent, and experiencing a psychotic break resulting in false claims of childbirth. And stamped in the corner, approved, case sealed. The rage that filled my body in that moment didn't feel human. I scanned everything with my phone. Every page, every signature, every lie. Then I took the folder, the hospital bracelet, and the photo of me and Eden. It wasn't enough for court yet, but it was a start. Back at the hotel, Sam helped me upload everything to a secure drive. We created copies. sent backups to her encrypted cloud my safeguard vault, and 3 separate offline hard drives. If they catch wind of this, she said they'll try to destroy it. Let them try, I muttered. I wrote the encryption. We worked into the night building a digital case file. I drafted a timeline, every incident, every date, every memory I could confirm. We even tracked down the nurse who sent me that anonymous text. Her name was Lori Bell, and she had worked as a part-time night shift nurse at St. Gabriel's Hospital in Boston. She messaged back almost immediately when we reached out. I remember you. They paid me to keep quiet. I have the original birth record. Meet me tomorrow. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared, but because for the first time in 17 years I had something that looked like hope. A name, a document, a voice that remembered. At 6:42 a.m. my phone buzzed. It was Eden. The message was short. Window open. I froze. My blood ran cold. She was in danger. They were moving her. Today, I had hours, maybe less. I grabbed my bag, the folder, and my phone. Turned to Sam. You in? I asked. She didn't hesitate. Always. We didn't have a full plan. Just a promise. I wasn't going to let them steal her again. Not while I was still breathing. Next stop, St. Gabriel's Hospital. Then the attic. And after that, hell, if they wanted to keep pretending I was crazy, then I'd show them what crazy looked like. St. Gabriel's Hospital hadn't changed in 17 years. Same brick facade. Same yellowing awnings flapping like breathless lungs above the ER entrance. The lobby smelled like bleach and bitter coffee. For a second, as I stood just inside the sliding doors, I felt 17 again, scared, bleeding, shivering in my sister's too-tight hoodie, clutching my stomach while my mother filled out paperwork and smiled like she was checking in a hotel guest. Lori Bell met us near the side entrance dressed in scrubs, her blonde hair twisted up under a plain blue cap. She looked nervous more than I expected, but I didn't blame her. What she was doing wasn't just risky, it was radioactive. She ushered us into a staff-only corridor behind radiology and led us to a forgotten records room with peeling linoleum and flickering lights. No cameras in here, she said. Not since the fire in 2019. Everything went paperless after that, but some files still exist on microfiche, old backups. She didn't look at me as she pulled out a small file box from under a metal shelf. You were the only one who cried, she whispered, the night you delivered. My throat tightened. What? Your mother said the baby was already gone, but I saw you holding her. I saw the way you looked at her. That wasn't a hallucination. My knees nearly gave out. She had a name, I asked. Lori nodded and slid the file across the table. Inside a birth certificate. Name baby girl, Bennett mother, Elaine Morrison. Time of birth, 3:14 a.m. June 7th. Weight 7 lbs. 4, Oz. Father unknown. Attending physician, Dr. Matthew Corbin. Stamped across the bottom in red sealed at family request. Lori handed me a thumb drive. I scanned everything. It's yours. But if they find out I gave this to you, I'll lose my license, my retirement. Maybe worse. I'll protect you, I promised. But we both knew that wasn't entirely true. There were things in motion now I couldn't control. Back in the car, Sam drove while I stared at the thumb drive in my palm like it was a holy relic. I had proof. Real legal proof that Eden was mine, that Allison had taken her, that my mother had orchestrated a cover-up so seamless even the state went along with it. And they were about to move her, bury her again. Not this time. We pulled up to the estate just before noon. The property was quiet, too quiet. No caterers, no decorators, no rehearsal brunch. Just a black town car idling in the driveway and 2 suitcases beside the front steps. My stomach twisted. They're taking her now, I said. Sam pulled into the cul-de-sac and cut the engine. You ready for this? I nodded once. Let's go. We didn't bother sneaking this time. We walked right up to the door, and I rang the bell. Allison opened it still in her robe holding a mimosa and trying to look surprised, but her eyes gave her away, wide, unsteady, unblinking. Elaine, she said tightly, what a surprise. Drop the act. I pushed past her. Sam followed, phone already out, recording everything. What are you doing? Allison snapped, following me into the foyer. Where is she? I demanded. She's gone, my mother's voice echoed down the stairs. You're too late. I turned. She stood at the top of the staircase, dressed like she was hosting a garden party, pearls tight around her neck like a noose. Gone where? Allison stepped in front of me. Somewhere safe. Somewhere you can't poison her with your delusions. I laughed, actually laughed. Then I pulled the thumb drive from my pocket and tossed it onto the floor at her feet. She's mine, and now I can prove it. My mother didn't flinch, but Allison did. Her hand trembled, her voice cracked. That's fake. You're not well, Elaine. You never were. Sam held up her phone. We're live streaming to 5 cloud backups and 2 legal servers. Keep lying, please. A door creaked. All heads turned. Eden stood at the top of the stairs, barefoot, holding a duffel bag. Silent. She looked at me, then at my mother, then back at me. Is it true? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Am I hers? I couldn't speak. My throat was filled with grief and rage and hope. Allison said nothing. My mother's lips curled into something cruel. She's broken, Eden. She's always been broken. That's why she couldn't keep you. That was the moment Eden descended the stairs, step by step, toward me. When she reached the bottom, she didn't even pause. She just wrapped her arms around my waist. I want to go with her, she said. Allison gasped. You don't mean that. But Eden didn't even look at her. She just held on tighter. We walked out of that house together. No police, no drama, just a quiet exodus. My mother didn't stop us. Neither did Allison. They knew. It was over. But I also knew something else. They weren't done yet. They wouldn't go down quietly. This wasn't a victory. It was an opening shot, and I was ready for war. We didn't speak in the car, not for the first 10 minutes. Eden sat in the back seat with her hands folded in her lap, her eyes glued to the window like the trees rolling by were a foreign country. Samantha kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, but I gave her a subtle shake of my head. Let her be. Let it come naturally. When we hit the highway, I finally turned around. You okay back there? A pause, then a soft I think so. It was the most uncertain sentence I'd ever heard, and who could blame her? She had just walked away from everything she'd ever known. Her world, however broken and suffocating, was gone. And the woman who had raised her, however twisted, was still the only mother she remembered living with day to day. And now she was in a car with a stranger who claimed to be her real mother. I knew what that felt like, to not trust yourself. To wonder if reality was just another lie whispered to keep you docile. Do you want to talk about it? I asked gently. No, she said. Then a beat later, not yet. I nodded. Okay. But I kept watching her in the mirror, and I knew the silence wouldn't last long. We reached the safe house by late afternoon, a short-term rental in Brookline, booked under one of Sam's LLCs. Minimal paper trail, untraceable payments, security cameras hidden in potted plants. Natalie, my CTO, had helped set up the encryption protocols remotely. No one was going to find us unless we wanted to be found. As soon as we stepped inside, Eden froze. What is this place? She whispered. Somewhere no one can hurt you, I said. She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. Then she whispered, do I have to go back? No, I said without hesitation. Never again. Dinner was awkward. Sam made pasta. Eden barely touched it. I offered to put on a movie. She shook her head. Eventually, Sam excused herself to take a call in the other room, and it was just the two of us sitting in the quiet kitchen, the kind of silence that used to be unbearable in my own childhood home. Eden toyed with her fork. She told me you were sick. I swallowed hard. She lied. She said you had a baby doll you carried around, that you pretended I was real. My hands clenched under the table. You were real. You are real. She glanced at me. But why didn't you come for me sooner? That broke me. I tried, I said, voice cracking. I swear I tried. They made me think I was insane. They said you died. They sealed the records. I was 17, Eden. I didn't know how to fight them, but I never stopped wondering. Never stopped hoping you were alive. Her face crumpled. I thought I was crazy too, she whispered. Sometimes I saw your face when I closed my eyes, but she said I made it up, that I was ungrateful. I reached across the table and took her hand. You weren't crazy. You were remembering. That night, I showed her the photo, the one Lori Bell had given me of me holding her as a newborn. I watched her study it in silence, then gently trace her infant face with her fingertip. She always said she didn't know where I came from, that I was just dropped off. But I always knew she was lying. You knew, I said, because the truth lives in our bones even when people bury it. She looked up at me with wide eyes. Do you think I'm like her? The question knocked the breath from my lungs. No, I said fiercely. You're nothing like her. You survived her. She gave a tiny broken nod, then reached out and hugged me, tightly, desperately. And I held her like I should have 17 years ago. Later that night, I stepped onto the balcony with Sam. She's in shock, I whispered, but she's fighting to stay present. She's stronger than she looks, Sam said, but so are you. I looked out at the street empty and still, and I felt it, that creeping instinct I hadn't needed in years. The twitch at the back of my neck, the internal alarm. Something was coming. I know Allison, I said. She's not going to disappear. She's not going to cry into her champagne and let this go. She'd be smart, to Sam replied. She won't, I said flatly. She's going to retaliate. Publicly, legally, maybe worse. Sam lit a cigarette and nodded grimly. Then we prepare for war. The next morning it began. We were eating breakfast, quiet, calm, almost normal, when my phone buzzed with a text from Natalie. They went to the press. You've been accused of kidnapping a minor. The story drops in 1 hour. I closed my eyes. Here we go. At 9:02 a.m., the headline hit every major news outlet. Tech CEO accused of kidnapping teen girl from prominent Boston family. The article was brutal. They painted me as unstable, a reclusive cybersecurity magnate with a long history of paranoid behavior. They quoted anonymous family friends saying I had a vendetta against my sister. They showed old photos of me from college, sleepless, gaunt, socially withdrawn. They described me as obsessed with reclaiming a fantasy child. They didn't mention the sealed birth certificate, the forged documents, the 17 years of silence, the attic, and of course they didn't mention Eden, not by name, not as a person. Only as a 17-year-old girl believed to be in the company of Ms. Morrison, as if she didn't have a voice, a soul, a mother. I turned off my phone. Eden was sitting across the room, hugging her knees to her chest. I walked over, sat beside her. They're trying to erase you again, I said quietly, but we're not going to let them. She nodded slowly. I want to tell my story, she whispered, the real one. I looked at her, startled. Are you sure? Her voice didn't waver. I've lived in shadows long enough. Let's bring it all into the light. And just like that, my daughter, my stolen, silenced, beautiful daughter, declared war. Not just on Allison. Not just on my mother, but on the entire lie our family had built. And I knew one thing for certain. The world wasn't ready for what we were about to reveal. We filmed her story that afternoon. No studio, no makeup team. Just Eden sitting on the couch in a faded sweatshirt, sunlight slicing across her face through the blinds. I set up a camera on a tripod hit record and sat silently off screen. Sam stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, phone ready, in case anyone traced our signal or showed up uninvited. Eden took a deep breath. My name is Eden, I'm 17, and until last week the world didn't know I existed. She looked straight into the lens, unflinching, steady. I wasn't allowed to go to school. I didn't have a birth certificate. I didn't have friends. No one outside the Bennett house even knew I was alive. Because they kept me in the attic. She paused. The attic was small, dark. Sometimes there were rats. In summer it got so hot the walls would drip. I used to pretend I was in a spaceship orbiting the Earth, because that made it hurt less. Her voice trembled. She told me I was sick, that I couldn't go outside because I'd catch something, that people would laugh at me, that the world wasn't safe for girls like me. A beat, but that wasn't the truth. The truth is, she wasn't my mother. Eden glanced at me. I nodded. She continued. My real mom is sitting behind this camera. Her name is Elaine Morrison. They told her I died. They stole me, and they made her think she was crazy. I felt my breath catch in my throat. She was doing it. She was setting the world on fire. We uploaded the video to a private cloud. Natalie, always 2 steps ahead, connected us with a reporter she trusted, a Pulitzer-nominated journalist who'd previously covered high-profile family abuse and institutional negligence cases. Her name was Isla Monroe. She responded within 15 minutes. I watched the video. I want the exclusive. I'll fly to Boston tonight. And just like that, the tide began to shift. But we weren't naive. Allison was still out there. And she had resources, reputation, lawyers. We knew what was coming. And it came faster than expected. That evening, we received an official letter from the Bennett family attorney, a cease and desist, alleging defamation, demanding Eden be returned to their legal custody immediately or face criminal charges. Sam snorted when she read it. They're terrified. Good, I said, let them sweat. Still, I knew words weren't enough. We needed leverage, something no PR firm could spin. That's when Eden looked up from her cereal bowl and said, There are cameras. I turned to her. Where? In the attic, she said calmly. They put them up last year, said it was for safety, but I know they were recording me. My stomach dropped. You're sure? She nodded. There was a red light behind the clock. It blinked when they thought I was asleep. Sam and I exchanged a look. If those recordings still existed, and if we could find them, they could be the final nail in Allison's coffin. That night, Sam and I returned to the estate. Not through the front door, not even through the cellar this time. We scaled the back wall, something we'd planned since day one, and entered through the old storm window near the second floor. It was dangerous, risky, illegal. I didn't care. They'd stolen my child. I was done playing nice. The attic was exactly as Eden had described. Bare, cold, a mattress on the floor, a bookshelf of outdated encyclopedias, a single chair with worn armrests, and on the far wall behind a cracked mirror, a small red-lit camera. Still blinking, still watching, still feeding into something. We followed the wire down through the insulation, through the wall, and into the old study on the first floor, Allison's home office. Inside a locked cabinet, a hard drive, dusted, disguised, but unmistakably connected to the surveillance system. Sam popped it out with practiced precision. Let's go. We were out in 12 minutes. By the time we got back to the safe house, the adrenaline was fading, but our mission was clear. The drive held hundreds of hours of footage, some of it harmless, some of it horrifying. Eden pacing, crying, talking to herself. Allison screaming at her for leaving a window cracked. My mother bringing up trays of food and taking them away untouched if Eden looked too entitled. In one clip, Eden stands at the window with the stuffed animal I'd left her as a baby and whispers, "One day she'll come for me. I know she will." I felt like I couldn't breathe. We didn't need to edit the footage. We didn't need to add commentary. We just needed to release it and let the world decide. The next day, Isla arrived. Mid-30s, dark bob, no nonsense. She spent 3 hours interviewing Eden, then me. She watched the footage, studied the documents, took notes with the intensity of someone preparing for a courtroom war. "They're not going to survive this," she said. "I don't want survival," I replied. "I want exposure. I want truth." And Isla delivered. 2 days later, the headline ran, "The Girl in the Attic: How a Boston Family Stole a Child and Buried the Truth." It exploded. National coverage, morning talk shows, online sleuths dissecting every frame of the video, celebrities tweeting justice for Eden, Congress members calling for investigations into family court oversight. The Bennetts went silent. But silence is a kind of confession. Eden's birth certificate was unsealed. Lori Bell testified. Other former employees came forward, drivers, housekeepers, tutors. It became undeniable. The truth had won, but victory didn't taste like I thought it would. It wasn't sweet. It was raw, quiet, messy. Because the aftermath of trauma isn't a sunrise. It's a reckoning. And now, we had to decide what came next. We were celebrities now. But not the kind you envy. The kind people pity, analyze, gawk at from the comfort of their clean suburban lives while sipping coffee and murmuring, "How could a mother do something like that to her own daughter?" News vans camped outside the courthouse. Twitter threads speculated on Eden's mental health, my obsessive vendetta, and whether the whole thing had been fabricated for money or revenge. Strangers sent letters, some handwritten in shaky cursive with words like miracle and bravery. Others were less kind. One postcard simply said, "You should have stayed in the attic." Eden read that one and laughed. That's how I knew she was stronger than I'd ever been at her age. The custody hearing was scheduled for Friday morning in a cramped courtroom with peeling paint and uncomfortable plastic seats. Allison didn't show, not even via Zoom. Her lawyers tried to push the narrative that Eden was emotionally unstable and had been manipulated by a mentally unwell tech executive with unresolved trauma. The judge, a woman with a sharp bob and sharper eyes, took one look at the video footage from the attic and said flatly, "I've seen enough." I was awarded full custody. Retroactive maternity was established. All previous guardianship claims were nullified. It should have felt like a parade of relief. But all I could do was look at Eden and whisper, "You're free." And she, this 17-year-old girl who'd never had a school photo, a locker, or a sleepover, simply whispered back, "What does that mean?" We spent the next few weeks in a haze of court-mandated therapy sessions, legal cleanup, and awkward attempts to build a normal routine. I enrolled Eden in an online transitional program. We set up her own bank account. She picked out a new wardrobe, basic, comfortable, nothing stylish, like what Allison used to insist she wear. One day she asked for a haircut. "I want to look like me," she said. She chose a messy shoulder-length bob with uneven bangs. When the stylist spun her around in the mirror, she smiled for the first time since the hearing. The Bennett family issued a press release, cold, calculated, empty. "We are saddened by recent events and remain focused on the health and healing of all parties involved." No apology, no acknowledgement, no admission. Just a vague fog of regret hovering over a crater of stolen years. My mother disappeared to Florida, citing stress and media persecution. I heard she was selling the house. Eden asked me if she could burn it down instead. I told her we'd settle for planting a tree somewhere else. We spent quiet nights cooking simple meals and watching bad TV. She liked sitcoms, especially the ones with laugh tracks. She said they felt safe. I let her talk when she wanted and let her stay silent when she didn't. Some nights she crawled into my bed, without a word, curled up like a child too small for the grief she carried. I held her, always wondering how much she'd internalized, what had survived in her body after all those years of isolation. One night she whispered she made me call her mother, but I never really believed she was. I didn't know what to say, so I just ran my fingers through her hair until she fell asleep. 3 weeks after the custody hearing, Eden asked to visit the house. The attic, I asked, startled. She nodded. I need to see it one more time, on my terms. I didn't argue. We drove there in silence. The estate was locked up for sale signs in the windows, the yard overgrown. We climbed the back fence again. She had no trouble. She moved like someone who'd been studying escape routes her entire life. We walked through the empty halls. The kitchen, the study, her prison. The attic door still had the same crack in the paint. She stood in front of it, breathing heavy, then reached for the knob and opened it. Dust, shadows, silence. Eden stepped inside. She turned slowly, eyes scanning every corner. She reached under the mattress and pulled out a notebook I hadn't known existed. Inside, years of drawings, notes, dreams, escape plans, tiny scraps of rebellion written in crayon and pencil. She handed it to me. Will you keep this? I nodded, holding it like it was the most sacred thing I'd ever touched. When we left, she didn't look back. And neither did I. A month later, we moved to California. Not San Francisco, too many memories. We chose Monterey, by the ocean. Eden said the waves made her feel clean, like they could carry the poison away. I let her decorate her own room. She chose green walls and a ceiling covered in glow-in-the-dark stars. Now I can orbit the earth from anywhere, she said. Some nights she still wakes up crying, but less often. She started calling me Mom without realizing it. The first time she corrected herself, then stopped correcting herself. That's when I cried. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not burning the house down, not dragging Allison's name through every courtroom and headline, not making her pay. I tell them this. The real revenge isn't fire, it's freedom. And Eden, she's free. And nothing Allison can do will ever take that away. But still sometimes, I wonder if we've heard the last of her. Because people like Allison, they don't lose quietly. They vanish like smoke, and they come back like storms. And I had a feeling the eye of hers hadn't passed yet. It started with a letter. Not an email, not a call. A physical letter, handwritten. No return address. Just my name. Elaine Morrison in tight cursive, postmarked from a tiny town in Connecticut. The kind of town that didn't have streetlights, but had 3 antique stores and a bed and breakfast with a white porch swing out front. Inside the envelope was a single sentence. She's not done. No signature. No explanation. Just those 3 words trembling in black ink. I read it twice, then a third time. And I knew exactly who she was. At first I told myself it was paranoia, trauma echoing back in my bones. After all, Allison had vanished after the court case. Her lawyers dropped her. Her social media went dark. Her influencer deals dissolved overnight. Public sympathy had shifted. The world chose Eden. And yet, Allison had never been the type to disappear. She was the type to perform disappearance, to vanish loudly through curated silence designed absence. She didn't go away. She lay in wait, like a viper in tall grass. 3 days after the letter arrived, Eden received a DM request from an unknown account. No profile picture, no bio. Just one message. Do you miss me? Eden showed it to me without a word. I stared at the screen, pulse quickening. The account's username was a string of numbers and letters, random but not to me. It was the old Wi-Fi password from the Maple Street house. Only one person would remember that. Allison. We took it to Natalie and Sam. They did a deep trace through encrypted proxies. The account pinged off 3 different IP addresses, 2 in the US, 1 from Romania. Classic obfuscation. But the signal source wasn't what chilled me. It was the final comment posted under Eden's viral video from a now-deleted account. She's not who you think she is. It was vague, easy to ignore, but the timing was calculated, and more importantly, it was her phrasing. Allison had always used misdirection like a scalpel. She never said you're lying. She said, are you sure that's how it happened? Undermining truth without ever outright denying it. Classic manipulation. That night, Eden sat on the kitchen counter, legs swinging, holding a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. She's going to come for me again, isn't she? I didn't lie. Yes. She looked up. Then what do? We We finish it, I said, completely. We knew what Allison would try next. If she couldn't destroy Eden's credibility in court or online, she'd go underground targeted smear campaigns, whispers to influencers, leaked footage out of context. We'd already heard rumors that a tell-all memoir was being pitched to publishers under a pseudonym. The working title, Stolen Child: A Sister's Truth. Subtle as always. Sam rolled her eyes when I read the blurb out loud. When family loyalty turns toxic, who gets to tell the real story? They're trying to flip the narrative, she muttered. Classic Darvo deny attack, reverse victim and offender. I clenched my jaw. Eden didn't say anything. She just walked over, took the letter, the DM screenshots, and the fake memoir blurb, and burned them in the sink. No tears, no ceremony, just fire. But I knew burning paper wasn't enough. Allison wouldn't stop until she felt powerful again. And if that meant finding new ways to twist Eden's story, she would. Unless we got to the story first. So we decided to make a documentary. Not a YouTube video, a full production. We'd use the footage from the attic, the testimony from the nurse, the housekeeper, the old driver who remembered Allison paying him cash to keep quiet. We'd recreate the timeline using voiceover stills security footage. And at the center of it all, Eden. Not as a victim. As the narrator. We found a production company known for sensitive trauma storytelling. They jumped at the project. Funding was secured within a week. The working title, The Girl in the Attic Reclaiming Eden. But Eden had one condition. I want the final cut. She meant it. She didn't want another version of her story filtered through lenses she didn't control. Not again. Not ever. Filming began in spring. She sat in a chair in a sunlit room, hair pulled back, no makeup. She told the truth in fragments, then floods. She stopped midway through some sentences, breathing hard, holding her stomach like it hurt. But she kept going. For 6 days straight. On day 7, the director, Anna, called me aside. She's powerful, she whispered, but there's something else. What? She's angry, and she's not done yet. That night, Eden handed me a flash drive. I found something she said. What is it? I remembered something she said once. Allison, when I was little. About a second girl. My stomach flipped. What second girl? She said she made a mistake before me, that I was her second chance. The world tilted sideways. I took the drive, plugged it in. A hidden folder, password protected. Eden had guessed the password Allie forever. Inside grainy footage, surveillance. But not of Eden. Of another girl? Blonde, smaller, crying. Dated 2 years before Eden was born. My skin went cold. What is this? I whispered. Eden looked at me. I think Allison's been doing this longer than we thought. The screen flickered. The footage ended. And a single file remained. A document, no title. Just one sentence typed in the center of the page. You took something from me, Elaine. Now I'll take everything. Allison, she wasn't hiding anymore. She was watching, and she had just made it personal. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, my laptop open beside me, the screen still glowing with that sentence. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. You took something from me, Elaine. Now I'll take everything. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. And it felt old. Too old to be about Eden alone. The footage of the other girl, blonde, younger, scared, looped in my head like a fever dream. She wasn't Eden. That much was clear. Different eyes, different voice, different cries. But the setting was the same. Same attic. Same camera angle. Same tone of, we don't talk about this. Eden sat beside me, her knees pulled up to her chest. She hadn't said a word since we watched the clip. Not one. Her face was blank, but I knew that look. It was the same one I wore the day after my daughter was taken. Shock buried under rage. Pain that hadn't found words yet. She finally whispered, "How many girls?" And I didn't have an answer. Sam arrived the next morning, a box of donuts in one hand and a laptop in the other. I didn't even have to explain, we just handed her the flash drive. She plugged it in, watched the footage, and then sat very still for a long moment. "This isn't just about Eden anymore," she said flatly. "No," I replied, "it never was." We ran the footage through facial recognition. The result came back faster than we expected. Match 89% certainty. Name Callie Margaret Ryan. Age in footage 5. Status missing person reported in 2006. Case cold. My blood turned to ice. Callie had vanished from a suburb in upstate New York. Her mother had gone to prison for child endangerment and eventual abandonment when the investigation turned up no leads. No body, no evidence, just one mother distraught and drug-addicted who swore her daughter had been taken by someone who smiled like a sister. No one believed her. Until now, we reached out to the cold case division, quietly, carefully, with the help of Isla Munro, the same journalist who'd broken Eden's story. She verified the footage, traced the timestamps, and confirmed the timeline matched. Callie would have been taken when Allison was 23, 2 years before I got pregnant, and now it seemed she was never found. Eden said nothing for hours after that. Then finally she looked at me and asked, "Do you think I was the backup?" I nearly dropped my mug. What? If Callie didn't work out, maybe I was the replacement. The words hung in the air like gas. Flammable, unbearable. I reached for her hand, but she flinched. "I need to be alone," she said, and I let her go. The production team paused filming. Too dangerous, too volatile. The footage we now had wasn't just a family scandal. It was potentially criminal, historical. A pattern of abductions, rebrandings, hidden children locked away under the pretense of protection and perfection. We'd peeled back the first layer. Now we'd found rot in the foundation. That night, a brick came through the window. It shattered the living room lamp and lodged into the drywall. Attached to it, a note written in lipstick. "You want truth? Let's tell all of it." The handwriting was unmistakable. "Allison?" I called the police. They made a report, filed it as a domestic escalation. The officer didn't seem shocked when I explained our situation. "We've seen people do worse when their reputations collapse," he said, "especially the ones who live for image." But I wasn't interested in image anymore. I was interested in exposure. The next day we went to the police with everything. The footage of Callie, the documents, the drive. Even Eden's journals, the pages she'd kept hidden under floorboards detailing Allison's rules, punishments, patterns. It was enough. A full investigation was opened, quietly, discreetly, but seriously. And for the first time, the name Allison Grace Bennett was no longer synonymous with glamour success and socialite perfection. It was synonymous with something else. Predator. A week later, I got a call from the lead detective. "We found something," she said. Or rather, someone. My throat tightened. We traced financial records from the Bennett Family Trust, monthly payments, consistent, sent to a care facility in Pennsylvania, under the name C. Rhodes. Callie? Yes, she's alive, institutionalized under a fake diagnosis for over a decade. I sat down, knees giving out. "She doesn't talk," the detective continued, "not since age 6, but we're working with trauma specialists now. We believe..." She remembers. Eden stood in the doorway behind me, silent. When I looked up at her, she simply said, "We have to help her." So we did. The documentary changed course. It was no longer just Eden's story. It was their story. Eden and Callie, the attic and everything it swallowed. We called the new cut The Others. And we ended it with one line written in Eden's own voiceover. "For every girl whose silence was mistaken for safety, we're speaking now." But even as the world watched, I knew one thing with certainty. Allison hadn't vanished. She was watching, waiting, and she hadn't said her final word yet. It was a Tuesday when Eden disappeared. The morning had been normal, or at least what passed for normal in our lives now. I'd made coffee. She was scrolling through music recommendations for the documentary soundtrack. Sam was running security sweeps on the production team's email accounts just in case Allison tried another infiltration attempt. I left for a meeting at 10 a.m. Eden was still in pajamas, wrapped in a blanket on the couch, humming quietly to herself. When I came back at noon, she was gone. No note. No phone. Just the blanket in a crumpled heap and the faint scent of lavender in the air. Lavender. Like Maple Street. Like the attic. Like Allison. I called everyone. No one had seen her. Her phone was off. No GPS pings. No messages. Her laptop was still at home. No suspicious browser history. No signs of a break-in. No struggle. The only thing missing was her. We searched for 72 hours. Sam filed the report within the first hour. Natalie sent out an internal alert to our entire digital security network. Facial recognition was activated across public CCTV systems. Isla blasted a private call for help through every journalist and legal advocate she trusted. Nothing. She had simply vanished, just like before. Then on the fourth night, a package arrived at my door, wrapped in brown paper, no return address. Inside was a USB drive, and a single Polaroid photo. Eden, sitting in a chair in what looked like a hotel room, hands in her lap, eyes open but vacant, not scared, not hurt, just blank. And taped to the back of the photo, "Let's finish what we started." I plugged in the USB drive with trembling hands. One file. A video. I clicked play. The screen lit up with an old familiar face. Allison. Hair longer, dark circles under her eyes. Still beautiful in the way vipers are beautiful. Wearing a white blouse like she was about to speak at a charity gala. She looked directly into the camera. "Hi, Elaine," she said. "Miss me?" She smiled slow and practiced. "I figured you'd enjoy a little reunion. Thought maybe we could settle some things privately. Sister to sister. No courts, no cameras, no documentaries." She leaned forward, her voice dropping. "You want her back? Come find me." The screen cut to black. The address came in a separate envelope 2 hours later. A private estate in upstate New York. No phone number, no instructions, just coordinates. Sam and Natalie begged me not to go alone. They offered teams, police escorts, legal support. I refused. If she sees cops, she'll disappear again. And I don't know how long Eden can last wherever she is. Sam stared at me. "She's trying to break you." "She already did," I whispered, "but I'm still standing." The estate was massive, overgrown, gated with rusted iron, the kind of place that once housed aristocrats and now hosted ghosts. I stepped out of the car, heart pounding. No sound, no wind, just the faintest hum of cicadas in the trees. I walked to the front door. It opened before I could knock. Allison, standing there, smiling like we were old friends reuniting at a wedding. "Elaine," she breathed. "You came. You have Eden." "Of course I do." She stepped aside. "Come in, let's talk." I followed her into the house, every muscle coiled. It was all too familiar. White rugs, glass sculptures, lavender-scented air. We moved through the foyer into a long corridor, her heels clicking softly. At the end of the hall, a door stood open. Inside Eden, sitting in a chair, hands still, face blank. "Allison, what did you do to her?" "Nothing," she replied. "I just reminded her who raised her." "You stole her." "I saved her," she hissed, spinning toward me. "You don't know what it was like. The pressure, the expectations. I was supposed to be perfect, but you got to be the broken one, the interesting one, the girl with depth. And when you had Eden, you were finally more than me." I stared at her, stunned. All this because of jealousy. She laughed, bitter and hollow. "No, Elaine, not jealousy, balance. You took her away from me in public. Now I take her back in private." I stepped toward Eden. She didn't move, but her eyes flicked up just once. And I saw it. The flicker, the rage. She wasn't blank. She was playing her. I lunged. Allison reached for something in her coat, but Eden moved first. She kicked the chair backward, dove toward me, and shouted, "Now!" From behind the curtains, officers flooded, and Sam included, badge raised, flanked by 2 NYPD officers and a plainclothes detective. Allison screamed, tried to run, got 3 feet before she was tackled to the ground. Eden clung to me, sobbing, laughing, shaking. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. "I knew it." Turns out Eden had planned it. The moment she received the DM, she started recording everything. She staged her disappearance, left digital breadcrumbs, hid the Polaroid and USB in a locker at the train station for Sam to find. She knew Allison couldn't resist a spectacle. But what Allison didn't know, Eden had set the trap. We returned home in silence. Not because there was nothing to say, but because everything had already been said, with actions, with risk, with trust. That night, I watched Eden sleep for the first time in weeks. Her face was calm, her breath steady. And for the first time, I believed we were finally safe. But even then, one truth still echoed. Allison may have been arrested, but monsters like her don't die easily. They hide, they wait, and sometimes they teach others how to take their place. The trial began 6 months later. By then, the world had already rendered its verdict. Allison Bennett was no longer a name associated with charitable galas or glossy magazine spreads. She was an icon of a different kind. Tabloid infamy whispered horror true crime podcasts that dissected every second of Eden's footage, every sentence from the attic journals. But court is colder than public opinion. It doesn't care about emotion. It wants evidence. And we had it. The prosecution built its case with surgical precision. Kidnapping, fraud, identity falsification, child endangerment, assault, and perhaps the most chilling charge, patterned predatory behavior. Callie was the silent center of it all. She'd been transferred to a trauma-informed facility upstate. Slowly, with professional support, she began to speak. Not full sentences, just fragments, names, phrases. Once she said, "I was bad like the other one." The jury heard that, and they wept. Eden testified too. In court, in front of Allison. She wore a simple blue dress and sat up straight, her voice unwavering. She told me I was a gift, a second chance, but only if I behaved. "What happened when you didn't?" the prosecutor asked. She'd take things, food, light, time. She'd say, "You're going back to nothing if you don't smile." "And what do you think she meant by nothing?" Eden paused, then answered, "My real mother." My chest cracked open. Allison didn't testify. Her lawyers advised against it, but that didn't stop her from trying to control the narrative. She mouthed words at Eden from the defendant's table. She wore white every day. She smiled for the cameras, a predator who believed her own mythology. Until the day the verdict came. Guilty? On all counts. Sentenced 45 years without parole. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Allison just sat there, stone cold, silent, as if the reality hadn't pierced her yet. Or worse, she already had another plan. Outside cameras flashed. Journalists screamed for comment. Eden squeezed my hand as we walked down the courthouse steps. "Do I have to say something?" she whispered. "No," I said, "unless you want to." She thought for a moment, then stepped toward the mic. "My name is Eden Morrison. I lived in silence for 17 years, in darkness, in fear, in a version of reality shaped by someone else's control. But I'm not afraid anymore. I want other girls, anyone who feels invisible, to know you are real. You are not a doll. You are not a secret. And no one gets to lock you away and call it love." That clip was replayed for weeks. Eden refused all interviews after that. She said her piece. She wanted to move on. And we did. We moved again. This time to a beach town in Oregon. Quiet, green, soft fog that hugged the cliffs in the morning. Eden enrolled in a local art program. She painted oceans and broken clocks and staircases that led to nowhere. She signed her work EM. Sometimes I asked what the M stood for, Morrison or something else. She always smiled and said, "Mother." I kept a box in my closet. Inside the photo of her as a newborn, the thumb drive, the burned edges of that lipstick-stained letter, the attic journal, and the Polaroid that started it all. Not because I needed to remember, but because forgetting would be the real crime. One night a storm rolled in off the coast. I found Eden on the porch, curled up with a blanket, watching the sky turn violet. "Do you still think about her?" I asked. "Allison?" She nodded slowly. "Sometimes, but not the way I used to. Not like a monster. More like a sickness I survived." "And what about your future?" I asked. She looked at me, eyes clear. "I think I'll build a house one day, with windows in every direction, so no one can ever say I don't see the truth again." I watched her walk inside. Strong, whole. And I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was grateful. Grateful that truth found its way through all the lies. Grateful that Eden existed. Grateful that even the darkest attic couldn't kill her light. If you're watching this, if you've ever been locked away in body or in spirit, know this. There's always a key, and sometimes the person holding it is you.